Hello there, Buzz Makers. Mike Mosquito with the Buzz Podcast, back with you with my wonderful co-host, Maureen,
Nylin.
with the week-ending recap of what's happened in our industry this week. We're here with you to talk about the hottest topics, some of the trends, and those things that may irk you or break you in your job. Maureen, how have you been doing this week?
Oh, it's been such a fun week. I'm so excited, especially for you. I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to formally recognize the outstanding work that you do every single day. And you were at the Sway conference this week. You were awarded a new piece of hardware. There it is.
I slept with it
And
last night under my pillow.
that's pointy, Mike. I hope you were careful.
I want to let you know that I was stopped by TSA. Now, I want to say something. I was stopped by TSA yesterday, but Amy Oliver, who also won an award, was behind me in line, and they didn't stop her, but they stopped me and pulled mine out of the box. Just
Hmm.
saying.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, again, huge congratulations to you and to Amy and all of the other people that were recognized for their efforts while they were at Sway. There was so many amazing posts out there, and I'm truly happy for everybody and the good work that they're doing.
Thank you so much, Maureen. It was a wonderful conference. It was a wonderful week in San Diego. We had a great time. Colin, John, Brittany, they all put on a wonderful conference of collaboration. It was bigger than it was here in Atlanta last year. The content was amazing. The vendors that showed up, they shared and gave us a lot of insight into where they're going in marketing and products. And so it really was, for me, it's a learning conference. While I presented twice while out there, I also learn while I'm out there because it's marketing and sales. So there's a collaboration between both of those that do a dance at this conference, and I speak about sales. As you know, I do sales training. That's one of those things that I'm passionate about, but a lot of people don't know about. And so when we talk about how to sell to and sell through, it's also how to market to and market through your companies to get to the right buyer, to learn how to use your content and your knowledge to tell the right message. So I think that Sway 2026 in Roxborough is going to be amazing. So I'm looking forward to what's next for that group.
Mm. Well, you always do great work, so I can't wait to see what is next for you. But
Well,
yeah,
thank you. Next year
it
will be
was a
you and
great
I.
week. Yeah. Well, hey, we're going for it, right?
Yeah, next year we're going for it. Hey, we're coming back, Sway, 2025. We got some plans.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. So, yeah, I held down the fort yet once again, but that's all right. So, we can talk a little bit about while you were out, what happened with the rest of the world. So, there was a few developments this week, not
Hmm.
surprised, right?
Not
Especially
surprised.
around the Medicare Advantage space. So,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
talk the good news. First, the good news is that there is a slight increase.
A
The bad
slight
news is
increase. There
it
was
is a
also
slight.
there's a slight increase and a decrease. They increased, I think the final on CMS, they finalized a smaller expected increase in the base payments, which is 3.7%. But I think they had a decrease of 0.8% as well. And so, again, they're still just at 3% increase in payments. So that risk model, um, I don't think they're really paying attention to what's happening in the rural and underserved markets. Star ratings, prior auth, all these net are all in play now because you're scrutinizing these plans based on what you think you're going to get out of them, and we're losing ground. We're losing ground with these plans. United Healthcare, Humana, CVS, they saw market reactions in hours of this dropping out, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, you've been on the front lines of this. When you can't afford to take care of patients, that's bad for the community.
Yeah. And that's, I think, what it really all comes down to at the end of the day. When I see those numbers are just numbers, right? But there's a
Mhm.
story behind the numbers. There are people behind the numbers. And eventually we have to get away from the idea that those numbers are so far removed from us that it doesn't matter. They absolutely do matter. And they matter in a population that is becoming older and older with more and more comorbidities. And so let's be realistic about what it actually takes in order to take care of each other.
You're right. And I know that health systems have tried to go with this a different way with, let's go value-based care models. Well, guess what? The market spoke when they gave this increase and said, you're not paying attention
Yeah.
to what's happening. So value-based care is now under scrutiny. Is it still working? Can we still make that work with no money? There's no value. I have a CIO here in Georgia. He says, no money, no mission all the time. I mean,
No
you
money,
can't
no value.
right. And so, how do you take care of people in these underserved markets? Um, because they do need care. We know it's not a nice to healthcare is not a nice to have,
Right. Yeah.
right?
It's not like the sunroof on a car. It's nice to have it, but truthfully, I don't know how often we spend our time driving and looking up through the sunroof. This is real. This is a necessity.
I think there are mumblings now. I mean, you may have heard about what's happening with physician groups out there.
Mm.
That's crazy that they're renegotiating and maybe even exiting Medicare Advantage and their contracts in some markets. That's crazy to think that that could happen.
Well, and I think we're seeing that even beyond just the Medicare space. I think there are health systems that are truly challenging the uh, the provider. What is the word that I'm looking for? Insurance companies. See, it's
Yeah,
Friday.
the
Yeah,
payers.
payer. That's a tricky word to remember, payer, Mike. But you're seeing those larger health systems actually that are going to be challenging those payer groups as well, saying, listen, you are undercutting us so much that we can't
Mhm.
afford to even have you as part of our network. Now, I had a recent experience with this, and let me tell you, it's a little scary because it it forced me to have to choose a brand new physician. And not only did I have to choose a brand new physician, but guess how soon I could be seen by that brand new physician? It
What was
was
your timeline?
9 months before I could get in. And it wasn't like I had a lot of providers to choose from either, Mike. There was like three in my immediate network. And I just happened to feel like I was lucky enough to find one that was accepting patients. So it happens not just on that Medicare side, it really does happen with the commercial payers as well.
I will tell you, mine was 7 months. I booked it in May. I went to my annual physical on New Year's Eve to a guy who had been seeing forever with not a problem. 7 months? So you're paying your premiums for nothing for 7 months. You're
It
hoping to
was
get in the year allotted for care. Nine
nine,
months. That is crazy.
9.
Mm.
And
And
I'm fortunate, I'm healthy and I don't have any risk factors. But for those that have chronic disease, I don't know what you do in those situations. So, yeah, we've got to start having some of these tough conversations and get really serious about what we're going to do as our next step.
I know
It
everyone's
can't go on.
critical. They're critical of the payers now because of what happened earlier last year. And everyone's gone through that. We've talked about this on the show before. Everyone's had the denial. People feel a certain way about them. I have said in circles, why are payers publicly traded? They're not incentivized to pay your premiums. They're incentivized to make sure there's a dividend paid to the people that are paying for
Absolutely.
that stock. So I'm not
Absolutely.
sure they're working. We're working against ourselves when we say payers should be on the stock exchange. That's just my opinion. You can chime in on the Buzz podcast. Come find us and drop your opinion on it. But I think that at the end of the day, you're going to see the dominoes are starting to fall across our industry because another hot topic we can pivot to now are talking about Crozer Health up in Pennsylvania needing $9 million to keep the lights on. You've talked about this in several areas about rural and underserved hospitals closing. They're not just a spreadsheet.
No, no. And I think in terms of all of the other spending cuts that the government is hoping to identify, one of the areas that has me the most concerned is the rural health. Because there
Mm-hmm.
are, and I was just reading this article today, the rural health flexibility grants, state offices at rural health, at risk rural health programs, rural residency development, all of that could be eliminated through the AHA. And that is incredibly scary to me. Let's be honest with each other. It's a lot of us don't live in major metropolitan markets.
That's right.
And having to drive 30 to 50 minutes to receive care may not be acceptable. And when
It-
you've got patients that are out there that need the help, can't get the access to it, guess what? You want to save a buck. It's not by allowing them to have their diseases continue to be unmanaged.
right.
So we've got to keep these rural health systems open. And the other piece of this that always has me concerned is we're hearing a lot about maternal mortality.
Hmm.
And there's been, again, I think over 100 hospitals, rural health hospitals that have closed since 2020 or on the brink of closure. And again, we can't afford to underserve that population.
Right.
Health starts at conception. We know that. We know we need to take care of each other. And sadly, US News also says this is so incredibly scary to me. We're a wealthy nation. There's no reason that we should not have better maternal rates than what we do. But in the US, 22.3 per 100,000, as compared to zero in Norway,
Wow.
1.2 in Switzerland. And the 22.3 is the US average. If you happen to be a Black woman,
Hmm.
double it.
That's it.
49 and a half.
That's crazy to
49.
think.
It's sad. Now, I don't know, not all of these probably are in a rural setting, but we still have this disparate idea that we can silo people and communities and not include them as part of our whole ecosystem. We need to start having inclusive care.
Right. Right. But some markets are losing the game, right? The rural areas, they're losing this game. I was talking to a CEO of a health system and talking about them. She wanted to put um, maternal services back in the community, and in making a vote for the funding, the male on the board that said female maternal needs are a want, not a need. And
Hold on.
I'm like, when it was said to me, I was like, my brain broke. I'm like, that wasn't a whisper in your ear. Like, no, that was a verbose male voice echoing in the room that female maternal care is a want, not a need, and didn't want to fund it. Voted no. Was a staunch no to funding maternal services in the community. Had the money available, but didn't want to spend it on maternal needs. So you got to think, and that's going to
Mm,
continue at least 3.5 to 4 more years. You
mm.
gotta hear that voice talking about maternal needs and rural being underserved. Again, opinions here, folks, because I think that as we talk and as you see these numbers aren't false. We're talking about numbers that are tracked, monitored, and managed to track how care is being delivered in our communities. So if you're not providing these services, if you are closing these hospitals, it's a sum losing game for all of us because care has to be sought somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
now are they going to start walking into the emergency rooms of hospitals because you now have to serve this population in the most expensive areas of the hospital? Maureen, you know
Oh,
best.
oh,
That's
absolutely. I mean, that's already a fact of life, right?
mm-hmm,
But we're just going to continue to cause such constriction that that becomes the only option. And that's where it gets scary.
right. So when we really need these emergency services, the ER, the ED, where these patients really do need care, they're going to be backlogged with people that just couldn't get common services, couldn't get their normal day-to-day physicals, but they have a pain, they have an ache. So
Mm,
what happens? You have to figure out how to feed and nurture your community. And I think these creative models that were great in the past that are not being funded now, that are being removed from service line in the community, I think they rear an ugly head and we all end up paying in the end.
oh, we absolutely do. We absolutely do.
So I
Well,
think that as we talk about, you've got hot topics that you follow each week. You take it from a female and nursing perspective, and I love the voice that you share. But transparency about these needs to happen at the government level, at the legislative level, at the funding level of government. And at some point, we're going to break our system.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of, so next week we've got a conference that we're going to be attending, and I'm going
Yes.
to focus on the voice of the nurse in my particular presentation. And what sticks with me is that as we grow in our career path and the closer we get to the C-suite, the larger that voice becomes. And yet at the same time, it is also the most disassociated from the work that's being done. And then I think there's the parallel right there. We've
Right.
got legislators that are in place that don't understand the operations of what healthcare is truly like. And great that they can propose all of these things, all well intended, I am absolutely sure. But again, it is not just an isolated thread that you are trying to
Mhm.
target. You need to look at the ecosystem. So, to your point, as you have patients that are seeking the ED for treatment because they've got no other options, I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm in between providers. I can't go to the one because I don't have insurance coverage, and the other one won't see me for 9 months, but I have high blood pressure and I'm having these really high readings, and also don't have any of my medication any longer. I'm out. I go to the ED provider may or may not continue to prescribe that because honestly, Mike, they're going to see you for one instance. They're not there to manage your care. They don't
Right.
know anything about your families. They don't know what your environment is like in your home. They don't know what your socioeconomic status is. There's so much that they don't know. And for them to have to prescribe something, I understand why some providers would say, listen, I can't manage that.
And they're going to start turning, again, you can't get in for 7, 9 months. At some point, it's going to be not accepting new patients ever based on your ability to pay for your care. These policies and playbooks that are being run for care validation, I just think they crash and burn
Mm,
in the end. And so you're right. I think that the voice of the nurse that you share from a clinical standpoint around patient care, around diagnostics, around technology that the nurse would touch and is supposed to be operationally more efficient for automation. How are you going to fund it? You're not having
yeah.
patients come into your hospital for 9 months. I mean,
Okay, so here's the rub. Here's the rub. I think about this. Bill Gates also made some pretty bold statements that have ruffled a few feathers along the way, saying that
uh-huh.
humans are going to not be needed for a lot of the jobs that exist today. One of the jobs that he called out were
Mhm.
physicians. And so it makes me think again about this lovely AI that we have introduced into our environment. And I mean lovely, truly, and also ironically, because at the end of the day, it's not going away. It's part of how we're going to operate moving forward. But again, going back to what's happened recently. So we've got some legislators that are calling for transparency in the AI algorithms
Right.
so that we aren't developing AI algorithms that include a bunch of bias, which data is biased.
That's
Data that
right.
doesn't even exist is biased. And so, calling for all of this legislation, I think it's the right opportunity to start introducing those conversations. Actually, I wish it would have happened way before now, but it's the time.
It is time. I speak a lot about AI globally at conferences and asking those tough questions around transparency. I have an AI company, Bot on Health. Karen and I are very transparent when we talk to our customers about what our technology can and should be doing.
Hmm.
And then how do we protect the patient at the back end of that, and be able to explain the equity, explain the transparency about around patients that are targeted for care. And one legislator or one senator said, we can't afford another black box in healthcare. That is 100% true. That stuck with me. We don't need another AI black box. I think
Yeah.
that when we look at these technologies, Maureen, And we're in the growth stage right now. This technology, it's not a novelty, it is here to stay. It is
Hmm.
transforming all facets of life very fast. How you write, how you think, how you engage when you go overseas into a restaurant and the lights are on but you don't see anyone. That's because AI has taken over the ordering, the management of the food service, and the delivery of the food service to you without human intervention. It is coming to our world in all sectors of business. We have to
Absolutely.
understand, when do we turn it all the way over to them, or do we keep the human in play?
Well,
I'd say we keep the human in play.
absolutely. I am with you 100%. I had a conversation with a nurse yesterday, and we talked about from the bedside perspective, what does AI mean to you? What do you think about it? Unequivocally, it's scary. That's what her particular response was. And she also happens to be a preceptor for other nurses. So even though, nursing is all about training, you have lots of training programs while you're going to school. You've got preceptor training after you've graduated and you're trying to integrate yourself within that health system and start providing care for patients. But she said, you know what I'm noticing? We have a deficit in basic knowledge. It used to be
Hmm.
we had paper orders. People could read cursive. Now I have students that don't even know how to read cursive.
Crazy, right?
She
What's
said,
my girl?
I've got students that don't know how to write care plans because now they're already pre-planned in our EMR and they just have to check the box. And she said, if now I'm putting in AI, I'm putting in another piece of technology that is restricting their critical thinking skills.
Critical thinking
And
is going away.
no, and then you know what I thought, Mike? Not only is that such a powerful statement, but I go back to the time where we have downtime in
Hmm.
our health systems. And it happens, some are planned, some are unplanned, but either way, let me tell you, when downtime happens, you know what people look like? It is gross panic. It is
Gross
I
panic.
oh my gosh, they don't even know what to do. It's like, "Oh my gosh, there's people in beds. What are we supposed to do with these?" And you know what? They were in the bed before the EMR went down. I think you can still care for them. So if we have that type of mentality right now, just when our EMR goes down, what's it going to be like when we lose what we think are our critical thinking skills?
Gross panic across our industry. You know that's going to stick, right, Maureen? You know that's
Gross
sticking.
panic. Hey, you never know what is going to come out of my mouth or what won't come out of my mouth, like how I couldn't think of the word payer, but gross
Oh my
panic.
goodness, that
Gross
is
panic.
awesome. I have loved this week's segment. This is again for our listeners, buzzmakers. These are the hot topics of the week. So as we wrap this up, some of the key takeaways. Maureen, tell me what's your buzzmaker move of the week? Buzzmaker move of the week, and what should thinkers and leaders be thinking about as we move into next week? What are your hot topics? What are you thinking about?
I still go back to I've spent a lot of time this week as I'm developing that presentation for next week, just
Hmm.
how important it is that the people that are doing the work be present at the table where the conversations are being had. And that's for all things policy, technology, decision making, wherever that is occurring. The people that are doing the work need to have a seat at the table.
I love it. And for me, it is really about thinking about where you're going with your technology, whether it's in sales, whether it's in marketing. Think about how you're going to change and influence a gap, a problem. Approach it from the perspective of the patient and how you're going to get that institution to understand you're there to protect and save that patient. I've heard a lot this week. For me, I'm moving next week into gathering information from a lot of institutions and putting out that information to you, the listener, those who need to hear how problems have been solved. So the buzz is here to bring an education. Sometimes you need to hear it, sometimes you want to hear it, but you're always going to hear it. Until next time, keep buzzing. Maureen and I are here to bring that news to you, and have a nice weekend. Goodbye.